6:01, I am going to start this meeting. We will start with a pledge of allegiance, I guess led by me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. I will open up for agenda review. Councilors, anything you'd like to review on the agenda?
Nothing to add or change, no.
Change.
Same.
Right, in that case, I will move on to public comment. This is a time in the agenda for anybody to give any public comment that is not based on items that are on the agenda. You can speak about that when we get to that agenda item. Seeing everyone in the room is here for our agenda item. There is, looks like somebody online. If you have any public comment you would like to give, please raise your hand. Great, seeing no public comment. I will move on to over here for the discussion and interview of candidates for a vacant council seat. Before I start that discussion, we are missing one of our council members, Councilor Judge. Yeah, you can, if you want to give him a call.
Thanks for being here.
All right, so, slight change in the agenda. I'd like to discuss with my fellow councilors if they think we should move forward. Obviously, this is to appoint our vacant council seat that was vacated as a result of former Mayor Lott stepping down and me taking her seat. Therefore, vacating my seats. We're already a smaller council. And then without Councilor Judge, there's only 3 of us who would be making this decision. I haven't heard from Councilor Judge. Just checking my email. Don't see anything in my email from him either, and we have tried texting and calling. I would say that we should move forward. But
I think to be respectful of everybody's time,
yeah,
the candidates are here. I would be comfortable moving forward at this point.
I think so,
Okay.
yeah, especially as Elaine reminded us, we have a especially tight timeline, so.
yeah, we are on that timeline. I'm stuck by rules to make sure that we have to appoint this seat within 30 days of the vacancy. And we also have done a very quick interview session with these folks, and we've asked them to turn around pretty quickly. So I think it makes sense for us to also, as you said, Councilor, please respect their time and move forward. City manager.
Just a note that, if you wanted to, you could opt not to decide tonight. And you could discuss if you wanted to, but that way the interviews would be recorded and then Charlie could view them if he has time before Monday, and then you could appoint on Monday.
All right, that's good. Yeah, we do have an executive session, so I think we can discuss that more of that period, but that's great.
Could we appoint you like at the first? That was asking for folks, never mind.
All right, so I'll just explain for the public who haven't been able to see online or our last meeting. We set a procedure how we're going to fill this vacancy. So Councilor Hurd and myself took all of the applications. We received 8 applications, which we were, sorry if that was Trevor, which we were really excited to see. We had some great conversations with folks. Just another amazing part about Winooski is there were so many qualified individuals who wanted to apply for this. So Aurora, I met with all of those people this week and last week. And then we have moved forward 4 folks who are with us today, Matt Crawford, Nora Doherty, Elsie Goodrich, and Al Turcos. We will be conducting a interview with all 4 of the folks today. And then we have warned an executive session where we can move into executive session to discuss thoughts, opinions, and then we can come out of that and possibly appoint someone, or we can wait until our next meeting as well. But again, as noted by our city manager, we do have to do that within 30 days, or we trigger a citywide election. So it is my hope that we can make this decision tonight or maybe tomorrow, but certainly before our next meeting, October 6th. So with that, I meant to get in here a little earlier and line up some chairs there. But if the 4 of you want to just all come up, or at least stay on the same row of orange seats. The way that we propose that we're gonna do this is it's totally up to you. Just so that I would like for this to be a conversation, so let's kind of thinking of you all coming a little closer. Very similar to your first interviews, we really want this to be a conversation, getting to know each other more. Of course, Councilor Oakley wasn't at those interviews, so they may have some more questions for you, or maybe similar questions to what Rona had asked. But I think how we'll start is if we could just go down the line, you'll introduce yourselves, give a brief bio, background, and then we'll dive into any council questions. And let's start with you.
Sure, my name, getting with asthmatic cough. My name is Al Turcos, my pronouns are they, them. I was born and raised in Vermont, born in Underhill, proud of it, school kid. I have lived in Winooski for like 2 years-ish. I was a renter at first. My wife and I just bought a home here. My background is mainly in social justice, predominantly with a focus in healthcare and helping people access abortion. I also do a lot of police accountability work. And yeah.
Hi, my name is Elsie Goodrich. I've lived in Winooski for 9 years. 2 of those years I served at the Winooski Memorial Library as the youth coordinator, essentially the youth librarian. And I've served, since leaving, I've served on the Winooski Development Review Board for 6+ years. I currently work at a law firm in Burlington, mission-based, doing affordable housing, renewable energy permitting, and civil litigation.
I'm Matt Crawford. I moved to Winooski in 2020 from the town of Georgia, Vermont, which is just up the road. I served on the select board there for 6 years, 3 years as chair. I've got a brief CV that I'll leave with you guys to give some reading information, but just I'm a public relations marketing consultant, self-employed. I live about 200 yards from here. I volunteer at the Winooski Food Shelf and a couple other places around town, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation tonight.
My name is Nora. I actually just moved here in April, so I'm the newest Vermonter here. I grew up in Massachusetts, moved to Colorado, did a year of AmeriCorps, did 4 years of helping people apply for SNAP benefits in Colorado, along with training some people to help their more rural community members apply as well. And then moved here with a newer job from a Boston-based nonprofit called About Fresh, and I help people get on a produce RX program where I am the customer service rep for that. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you all so much. We really appreciate. I think I emailed you all last night telling you the final time to show up today, so. You knew it was a fast process going in, but I don't know if you knew it was gonna be this fast, so thank you. Councilor Oakley, if you didn't get a chance, I'd love for you to go to start with questions.
Sure, I can also give an introduction myself. So Brian Oakley, I've lived in Winooski since 2010. And started as renter, bought my home. I am in my 3rd term. And serve the council on the Municipal Infrastructure Commission. I also am the representative on the Chittenden Solid Waste District and on the advisory board for the bridge replacement. So a lot of the infrastructure related stuff, and then ad hoc things, committees as they come up and are needed. And for relation, I live over on Franklin Street. But I want to extend a thank you. This really was a very fast process. Thanks for being available, and for your interest in council. I'm sure that, both Councilor Hurd and Mayor Renner have gone over the kind of timeline, but just to kind of make sure, like, it would be appointed from, the date the council votes on the seat through, town meeting day. And then the seat would need to be, voted on. So I don't know, if any of you have expressed interest in staying on for that open seat. Or for running for, mayor even. Cause that seat will be open, town meeting day as well. So there'll be 2 council seats and now the mayor's seat that will be on town meeting day. So I don't know if any of you have expressed interest during your interview, so I apologize if questions are repetitive. No wrong answer.
And I think you can just popcorn answers, as they come to you.
I had not thought beyond this primarily, because I wanted to see if I liked it and had the urge to keep going, so that's my main thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I agree, sort of take this time to figure out what the functionality is and or the commitment, and if it's something that can be sustained.
Yeah, certainly the same, and focusing on, the next 6 months.
However, I think also it's really important that our city council is representative of the civilians of Winooski. I'm a white person, Winooski is the most diverse city in the state, which is one of the reasons why I moved here. And so I would love to, if given this opportunity, also potentially recruit for like a young, I mean, I'm 37, I'm not old, but a younger person to potentially be on. I haven't read the city charter, I don't know how old you have to be to, be on this. But to, really think through like what it would be for the city council to be representative. It most certainly is at the moment, but what would it be to have someone, more representative of the city, but I most certainly would be interested in running again.
In terms of age demographics, I am the oldest counselor on the council, so if you didn't know.
I know.
So that's why.
We're not being ageist in this.
But yes, in terms of the different demographics that we want represented, thank you for that. With the shifts, there would be some, not just on council, but the commission seats, like I just mentioned, I'm on the infrastructure commission. It would leave some vacancy on the commissions that need to be filled, so it isn't just the council seat that would require your time, but also those commission seats. Are you willing and able to step into those commissions? I believe you have to be on the planning commission, the mayor does,
Correct.
and I believe the mayor would also be on the finance commission.
Remind me the other day.
The mayor doesn't have to be.
But I
Okay,
think
not
that-
by statute.
But I think I probably would continue that
Okay,
tradition.
so that would leave the Safe, Healthy, Connected, seat, council liaison seat open. Is that something that, and what's the frequency of those meetings?
Planning, sorry, Safe Health Connects people once a month. On Tuesdays, the second Tuesday.
Okay,
I see.
So,
Yeah, the
in
second
addition to
Tuesday.
like at least 2 council meetings up until January, and then 1 meeting a month for the next 3 to 4 months. Okay, head nod, great, cool. I guess the other thing is, and sorry for being repetitive, budget season essentially starts now for staff. And for council, we'll be briefed on the schedule we've actually already kind of seen a rough draft of the schedule, but we end up having weekly meetings in January. Unlike Burlington that have marathon meetings all the time, January is essentially like our marathon in a way. So it is, I'd say it's this period of time is the gauntlet for counselors. It's is the most demanding time wise. I'd say usually on average, my time a month can average between 10 to 15 hours a month. And then during budget season, especially January, it goes up closer to 20 hours a month. It depends how long you take reviewing the packet, how much time you spend sending questions to the staff like I do. But that can give you a little bit of a sense for like, January is pretty much the very intense month, and then it'll quiet down quite a bit in February. But leading up to that, it's pretty busy. There wasn't a question there, but just again, kind of giving a sense for the time and time commitment over those this next short but full eventful period of time. And again, just wanted to make sure like that you all are realistic about your own time commitments and availability. I guess other questions I might have are, since I wasn't part of the interviews, and now that you've had time to reflect on those interviews, is there anything else that each of you would want to add or share that for myself or for others that are maybe watching live or the recording that might stand out as contributors to what sets you apart?
Have you read our counselor statements that we submitted with the applications?
I have, yes,
Okay,
but I wouldn't assume that
yeah.
everyone has.
Well, I know, because I'm already talking. In addition to my career with the city, I have experience as a treasurer for a nonprofit organization. I've run the budget here for 4 years. It's a much smaller 501c6, but I do have familiarity with the budget process and the ins and outs of that.
Right.
I'm not sure I really wrote a statement when I applied, but I think what we talked about in the interview process, I just kept harping on my experience having sat essentially in those same chairs, and not quite as comfortable as the
They're not as comfortable as they love.
for 6 years in Georgia, both building a municipal budget, working in conjunction with our school district to put together a comprehensive budget that voters can understand, and then do some capital budget planning with VLCT. So I think we talked a lot about that in the interview with me. It was my experience working the board, building budgets, understanding how that process works or doesn't work.
Okay.
I don't know if I specifically said this in my interview, but I definitely alluded to it. I have absolutely zero experience in the government, but I have a ton of passion and empathy, which is something our federal government needs a little bit more of. But I would like to work alongside with people who have similar values, and I think that my experience with the food systems is also very unique.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's almost exactly what Nora said, which is the fact that I've also like, been on the board of 501c3 and a 501c4, and it's where the majority of my experience comes from. And I have an experience in the government space, but mainly on a state or on a federal level. And I think for me, it's just the idea that like, I love this town so much. And, like, my wife and I have really like moved to this community to want to just like be a part of its, I don't know if I love the term resiliency all the time, but like just to be a part of the thread of this. She just became the mini Metro League, like 5th and 6th or 7th and 8th grader girls basketball team. At Winooski, and we're just trying to just be a part of this community as much as we can. And I think I really appreciated what Councilmember Hurd said about a budget being a moral document. And the idea that we as a community and as a city, like have deeply held values and beliefs, and living and operationalizing our values is the most important thing. And we can like stand on those values, as the teens in my life would say, like stand on business. And like the way that you do that is through a budget. So how do we live and operationalize those values for our community, our neighbors, the civilians and constituents of Winooski, and that's through our budget. And so we can make commitments and we can follow through on them, and like, sure, it's an Excel document or whatever it might be, but like, this is an opportunity for us to really come through And I think particularly at a time when people need community. And it's a way for us to, like I said, just like deeply live and operationalize our values. And that's one of the things that I'm so excited about, is like a budget's not just a budget.
Awesome, great. Are there any other questions during your interviews that you'd want to highlight?
One of the questions I asked everyone was around housing and like advocating for housing, for the needs of our particular community and how the council seat can do that. So happy if anyone would like to repeat or expand upon, your answers to that question.
One of the first things that everyone told me, upon moving here was that there's a housing crisis, and I have pretty decent sized family up here, kind of extended, and we all feel similarly that it needs to be addressed, and, well, I'm sure it is being addressed, but to kind of harpen, down on it, and living in a place that's so wonderful in the community is so easily seen and strong. It should be something that's a priority, and also just like seeing all different on walks, seeing plots of lands that could be different types of affordable housing, and just, it's really important, and I'm glad that it's really high on the dock.
You want to
Go
say-
down the line,
Go down the line. Well, I think that, the city council or town governments are just part of a large mosaic to figure out this, housing crisis that's in Vermont. And clearly, it's the leading issue that we all should tackle. There's only so much that a city council can do, or a town government can do, or a planning commission can do, or an environmental board can do. So it's a matter of coordinating, and then each part of that little puzzle, making it a priority to address the housing issue. So I said, I think in my interview, that if there is a program or an initiative that the city council can do to make housing more accessible, then it has to take that seriously. That has to be priority one. And we can't change everything. Act 250 is gonna do things, market forces are gonna do things, developers are gonna do things, but whatever the city can do as its own entity to prioritize housing, they have to. And city councils and town governments that don't make that a priority are really leaving all Vermonters behind.
Thanks.
I'm really excited to see how the recent changes to the Unified Land Use and Development Regulations are gonna play out, as well as changes to inclusionary housing. I think one of the greatest things that we're seeing in Winooski right now is a lot of development aimed at single young professionals, adults, couples, not really capturing the need for families, or multi-generational households. So I think incentivizing, seeing how the recent changes will play out, but certainly paying attention to that very closely and working to continue to incentivize developers to build 3+ bedroom units. And also really paying attention to the fact that we are a very small land city. So, how do we incentivize reasonable infill, without putting extra strain on, our infrastructure, like street parking is often an issue that comes up with infill. But how we can really holistically approach this. Are there other incentives we can use to get developers to build, not necessarily the quick and easy enough to house young professionals, but the housing that we need to create diversity in the stock? Thanks.
You're great. Thanks, I love everything about you. Yeah, I think the thing that I've personally been thinking a lot about, and I think also just because it's very top of mind, because my wife is just inside the school system recently, is how the Winooski school system and housing are like threaded, and the idea that we've been losing numbers within our school system, and that I think we have families who are starting in the city of Winooski and then are leaving the city of Winooski. And I think it goes to a lot of what Elsie was just saying. And so I think particularly as multi-generational housing is very real, and I think housing affordability. And I think it's also, to me, it's like housing affordability and then the question of like, who are we making housing affordable for? And my wife and I were very privileged again to be able to have just bought a house here, and I was very privileged to be able to rent a house here. But I think the question is like, when we are and not we as in the people in this room, but like the sort of larger, community of we, when we are having those conversations, who are the people that we are thinking of? Are they at the table? Are they a part of those conversations? And so when we're talking about housing affordability in the city of Winooski, those are the things that I'm sort of thinking of. It's like, yes, it's obviously city council, but then it's larger. And I think it's, yeah, like when developments are going up, like, right, I think of, I live on Fountain Street, so there's a development Molly's Way, and then there's a plot of land, they're going to be connected. My question would be, you know, like, what does the affordable housing look like within that? It's small, but it's still possible. And so those are just the sort of questions that I want to be asking is like, who are we making it accessible for? And like truly how accessible, what does accessible actually mean?
One of the questions that I was asking Bren was, just about if folks had any budget priorities, seeing as they will be starting on budget day one, which they've been calling it. But what I'd like to ask now is, you know, understanding that you're starting on kind of budget day one, you're being dropped into the busiest time for counselors. Normally we get elected in March and it's kind of a much easier flow. What, if you were selected, would you do to prepare for that drop? And also, what would you need from me as mayor or from any of the other councilors to assist you in that drop?
I am a huge preparer, so a couple of things. One thing to prepare would be to educate myself a little bit more about how budgets work in a city. And then on the more mental side, the taking care of myself, so making sure that I have like, you know, good walks set up and meditation and stretching and like not a ton of plans, like if I can help it. And because that, you know, frankly is very important. If your brain's not clear, it's really hard to digest information. And then I'm a huge question queen. I ask tons of questions. So the main thing I would need is just patience and answers. So
Yeah, I would wanna talk with the 4 or 5 of you and ask what your hopes and dreams are, and like really what have you identified as needs in the upcoming budget? What have you identified as needs in the 5-year and 10-year plan? And then sort of take a look, I've already looked at past budgets, but take a look at historical budgets and see what you think was being funded at a correct level or what might need some help being funded. And the $64,000 or more question to this whole thing is how we work with the school budget, because residents don't just say, oh, my taxes are $3,000, they say they're $6,000 because of the school budget. So we have to be cognizant of what's planned there, so there's gotta be some conversations, two-way conversation, just to get an idea of what the Winooski School District is looking at for some increases. And how that would maybe slow or accelerate what this budget, the town budget, the city budget could do. So I think that's what it would be. It's a discussion of where you think the strengths and weaknesses are in the current budget, where you already have an idea, I'm sure, you already have an idea of the strengths and the weaknesses of the budget moving ahead. And then it's probably a discussion, I don't know if they've started yet with department heads, have you started about the department heads, this is their.
So that's part of the next couple of months.
Yeah, and just caught up to speed on what you've heard so far and where you think that those holes and strengths are.
We did talk a little bit about this in my interview. In true to my word, I have spent 2 weeks watching the past 2024 or 2025 fiscal year budget. So from November through February, all the preparations, certainly learning a lot of things that I didn't know about our city. And I recognize obviously this budget's not going to be the same, but there are persistent problems that I'm sure have not been resolved in this year. So I would like to think that I'm coming in with a little bit of experience, at least for the most recent budget. I would be very interested to hear what the priorities are. I know our rent list has not grown that much. I know health insurance costs have. So I imagine there's more of a pressure this year than ever before. So I'd like to hear what the current goals of the council are and how best to balance that.
Thank you.
Sam, I did a lot of excavating. I'm just like going through and sort of like letting the budget speak to me, right? So like what what from this piece of paper, my computer screen, right, like, looks like a priority, but then also like, what am I reading into it that, maybe seems like a priority to me that isn't. Similarly, I would ask a lot of questions and, both of you all and people in the community, right, who have maybe served on the city council prior, like, what do you wish you knew, not like access to resources, but just like going in, right, like, what do you wish you had in your toolbox? And I'm really grateful to have friends who have served on local city councils in their communities as well, both like some larger cities like in DC and smaller cities. So I'd use them as a resource as well to say, like, what do you wish you had known? And yeah, I would just do a lot of listening, because I think that's really important. I'm most certainly not an expert in this. But yeah, that would really be my, kind of more thing would be too low.
Thank you, and I think we said it to some of you, but maybe not all of you. I don't think any of us, well, I know I didn't, I believe we were all sedated, I don't know about you, Brent, but we hadn't done any large type of budgeting, I budgeted for my household, maybe for the odd charity that I volunteered for a singular event, but nothing big, so, it's definitely not a requirement to have managed a city budget in any sense of the way, so just want to relieve you of any of those thoughts.
The Chittenden district budget is far larger than the city of Winooski, so. And I was on the finance committee for CSWD, so I did have some experience. A little bit bigger than the budget.
When you
Say
set
it
the
like that.
tax rate, when you set the city tax rate,
When do we set it?
Yeah.
January?
But the tax rate isn't like, sure.
Well, technically, yes, so we set, yes,
Yes.
you're giving the
Sorry.
accurate answer. I'm giving the answer that people will vote on a budget with a presumed rate.
Right.
And that's voted on in January. There's a deadline where we have to approve a budget to go to voters, and that is a presumed budget. And then the actual budget happens after town meeting day, usually in June.
Yeah, so we vote on the amount of money and how much we assume that is going to increase, usually not decrease, unfortunately, the tax rate. So yeah, and then depending on how the grand list shakes out, sometimes the actual tax rate is a little more or a little less.
and where are we on CLA, or where we need to be, or where citywide assessment, or?
Appraisal a couple years ago, home values are still skyrocketing, so I don't think we're gonna get ordered to a reappraisal soon, but I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it should be, yeah, not too bad.
Good, for sure.
Yeah, that wouldn't be part of this council, but.
Good, yeah, that's good.
Just two more questions from
No,
me.
please,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have any of you read the strategies and priorities for fiscal year 26? Awesome, that is helpful. And Matt was kind of already touching on this, but want to emphasize again, just to reiterate it, it sounds like many of you are familiar that the school budget is voted on entirely separately from our city budget. So when folks get their tax bill, it's on one piece of paper. And so there is the challenge of differentiating, like, this is your school budget and this is the city budget. And historically, you'll tend to see lots of chatter on Front Porch Forum of how frustrated folks are about how high their tax bills are. So
That was before Front Porch Forum. It's been years.
So there is that juxtaposition, where it's voted on by two separate councils, it's, two different items on the ballot. But when people get the one piece of paper, they see that single charge. So historically, and, council, I think, has been fairly conservative with our rate increases, being mindful of that impact, the collective impact.
And do you get a heads up? Does the school come to you and say, hey, look, we're looking at 10% or 12%?
We're not,
So
not necessarily.
we do a meeting with
Yeah,
a joint
that's what I was
meeting
gonna
with the
say.
school board, and depending on where we're all at that meeting, we kind of might be able to share more or less information on what we're looking at for budgets. Elaine and the superintendent are in pretty constant contact with each other. And we try, and Elaine thankfully encourages us to try not to think too much about what the school is doing as we try to plan our own budgets. We do have to think about the city's needs. Of course, as we do that, we have conversations with community members who are thinking about that final amount, right? That they're gonna get hit with, each month or each year, however they pay their taxes. We present our budgets together. I know a couple of you have been to those meetings where we present everything together so that people do get the full download at the same time. But we're on a close schedule, but slightly different, so we're not exactly coming up with our final numbers at the same time.
Right, yeah. School usually is a couple weeks ahead of council, so we often have a little bit more of a sense of where they're at, but again, to reiterate, we don't think of them collectively to our best ability, because the city has its own needs that have to be met, but
So tricky,
Please.
yeah.
And of course, I got here 3 years ago, so I haven't, been here that long, but we have staff that have been here a long time. And there was a period when I heard council was maybe a little too cognizant of what the school district is doing and was under invested in city needs for a long time. So I'm grateful that council and my tenure has heard that and is, of course, we do care about affordability and that's an issue. But they're not so like, no, we gotta keep it to this number, arbitrary number. Recognize that we need to keep up, otherwise it's gonna be more expensive.
Right, and to that point, part of October meetings are, we sometimes set an overarching goal of where we would like to land.
Will be the first meeting
Yeah, so that'll be Monday.
on Monday, yes.
So helpful to kind of put that in context.
Yeah.
So the last question that I had,
Oh, go ahead.
did you have anything else on that?
I've got another question, but feel free.
Oh, okay. It's just high level, curious if who has attended a council meeting in the past, online or in person.
For the city of Winooski.
City of Winooski. Okay, thank you.
My next question is about conflict. So I'd love to know how you deal with conflicts and how you approach it. And I also want to carry out that with saying conflict isn't always a bad thing. And I'm thinking if you could frame this answer in terms of dealing with your fellow counselors, but also dealing with community members who may be coming to you with conflicts.
I
Sure.
can start. The person that came to mind is one of my favorite books by Sarah Schulman called Conflict is Not Abuse. Which is like a grounding force for me in terms of conflict. Being in social justice spaces and like movement spaces, conflict comes up a lot. And I think really sometimes we use the term conflict and I think it might just be like a rupture or a fissure or a disagreement. And I think sometimes people they think conflict is like cancel culture. And I think of Adrian Marie Brown, like, we will not cancel us. So I'm smiling because I'm deeply unafraid of conflict. And I think sometimes beautiful things can come from it. And it's just the idea of like, we, rather than running away from one another, we need to run toward one another. And I have been through deep, deep hardship in my life. And with that, I think comes incredible empathy and compassion and understanding, which is why sometimes with conflict, I'm like, oh, honey, we're gonna sit down. I've got time, you've got time. We're gonna come out of this and we'll be best friends. And so that's why my face is doing this thing, because it's like, I'm here for it. And so, yeah, I think that in this space and in this position, you might have a little bit of a rupture, which just might be a misunderstanding. Someone might come into this room and they got a parking ticket. Their kid is sick. One of their best friends got fired, right? Like, you don't know what someone is carrying into this space. And that may be a council member, a colleague, a coworker, and also a community member, right? Like, you might announce something regarding the budget, you might announce something on social media, and you are not a representative of that technically, but you serve Parkstone City Council. And they might come to you and they might just need to release that, and you might be the best and only person to receive that. And your job, in my opinion, is to take a deep breath and say, thank you so much for sharing that. You are heard, you are seen, and we are gonna do everything that we possibly can to ensure that there is some type of resolution. It doesn't mean that all of your problems are going to be solved and like, we're gonna buy you a house. But it just means that like, we see you when we hear you. And I think so often the thing that people want to hear is what happened to you mattered, right? So like, no matter what it is, their garbage, well, I guess we don't do city garbage, but right, like something happened. And they just want to know that what happened to me mattered, and that somehow, someday, there's going to be a solution. And like, we're solution oriented, that's what we're trying. It's not gonna happen tomorrow, or maybe like in this budget year, but like, we are here as a city council, we work as a group, we are a collective. And that's what I think is so important. I can talk about that forever.
That's what we put that, that's wonderful. I think that's great. I would also add that I think on council, part of the job is to challenge each other and to ask questions, to create conflict in some ways respectfully. To make sure that you're not just agreeing, you're not just taking everything at face value, and you're critically assessing things. And if you disagree with something, that you are challenging it and you are standing up for what you believe in and what our constituents need. I think it's always important to be respectful, to listen, and to approach every conversation assuming that everyone does have the best interest of the city and that we are all working towards a common goal, which is making Winooski the best it can be. But I think it's not only naturally occurring on council, it's intentional and it should be occurring.
I think that's it. It's good things can come from discourse. Conflict sometimes can be messy, but if you, like I said, if you acknowledge, if you listen, and my wife has this wonderful phrase, she's the ninth of 10. We have 3 great kids, and she always says, all this stuff comes, and she always says, we'll figure it out. And so I think that's the sort of, okay, I hear you, I understand that there's an issue. We'll figure it out. Like I said, it may not be the resolution, your part together may not go away, but we'll figure it out. And I think that's the way to approach it. And these guys have summed it up beautifully.
I grew up in an Irish Catholic household where a lot of our arguments were either big arguments that blew up or swept under the rug. And so I, in my mental health journey, have over the past, almost 20 years, try to figure out like how to deal with conflict, because I wasn't taught how to do it properly. Love my parents, but they were not taught either. So I had to do a lot of exploring in that. And then the job of helping people apply for SNAP and my current role brings a lot of distress out of people. And what you said earlier, like sometimes people just need to let it out and to be heard. And so the first thing is listening. Let's just like listen patiently and find the root of the problem of what they're trying to express. 'Cause a lot of times it's lost in the sauce. And so listening, waiting, also not taking it personally, because that is a huge thing to both feel and not project. But it's what everyone else has said, like conflict is beautiful. I think it's taken me a long time to figure that out, but it only creates good things when it's broken through and dealt with. And the main thing that I've learned is patience with it, listening, and then making them feel heard, and then figuring out the rest later.
Yes.
I have just one more, but I'm also like super, this is why we had such a. Y'all are just.
Forward great to the efforts.
The one additional question that I've been kind of sitting on, after we've had these conversations is. I think in a lot of ways you've each touched on this, but getting kind of specific with what does inclusion and belonging mean to you, especially thinking of it at that city level?
Middle folks, you can answer first too. I see you both looking side to side.
I really love what you folks do with the equity audit, and I really love the new term that I found. That was outcome-based equity, and I think that's really important. I think really making sure that Winooski is the most diverse city in Vermont. There are so many voices that are not in this room and that are not here. And making sure that we're not making decisions for people without people. But that we're constantly striving to include everybody. The way that people receive information is rapidly changing and constantly evolving, and the work of equity, inclusion, and belonging is never done. So just constantly keeping that at the forefront of your mind, critically thinking and analyzing every situation of, is this equitable or is just the way that it's always been done?
Yeah, I don't think there's an easy answer. I mean, I think you touched on it. You've got to make sure that you're approachable, that you're figuring out new ways to communicate, that you are listening to people who say that there's a problem with this or that. And that you recognize that problem and try to work to affect that change. You know, this is a unique city. There's no question about it. There's a unique city in not only its racial makeup, but its its financial demographics. Where we are in the state of Vermont is also unique and presents some challenges and presents a whole bunch of opportunities. And so to lean into the change leads to something as wonderful as what Winooski has become. There's more work to do for sure, but I think when you look at what Winooski has done so far, you're on the right track. And I think whoever, I'm sure that either one of any of these three would do the same thing, just continue to make sure that journey is the next step is taken in.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, the first thing that came to my mind was that I felt inclusion and belonging immediately upon living here, and that is something that's really special, both with the fact that I have family here, but it's the type of people that like are out and about and like want to be here and want to be part of the community. It's something that is just so special. And I mean, one of the things that comes with that, and that is so obvious, is just like being approachable, like you said, like being friendly, approachable, wanting to make sure that people are included and feel like there's a place for them in this tiny but beautiful city. Yeah, we have to keep the doors open, and I don't really know beyond that, but it's a simple thing to do, or a simple fact idea, but it is there's lots of complications with the demographic and the climate we live in and all that, but there's ways for all of that.
I think the language justice work that you all are doing at the city level is extraordinary. I think, you know, we're seeing it in the schools, and I know that also the school is separate, but I think, I feel like I was just reading this probably on Instagram. But like the ambassadors that you have in the school system, right? And the fact that like, I'm sorry that I can't remember this man's name, but like he was in the school, and like that I think is just extraordinary. Like that is to me the definition of inclusion and belonging, and the idea that you have someone who like, you know, like we always say, like representation doesn't always matter, but like I think oftentimes it really does. And the idea that you have someone in your school system who like looks like you, who speaks your language, and who can really help facilitate that. And I think then like on the city level, to be able to go somewhere and to navigate like, you know, anything that is in your first language, you know, if English is your second language, third language, etc. I think Winooski has done an extraordinary job with that. And then I think also at the city level, it's the idea of like knowing that you will mess up, like knowing that you are going to get it wrong, and like being okay with failure. Like when you are trying to include people, and I guess I'll speak from an I statement. Like doing the work that I have done predominantly in like movement spaces, I have done work where I have not been A, at the center, or B, like my example is like I've never had an abortion. But that has been the root of my work. And so like, I'm going to mess up. I might say something incorrectly. and so I'm okay being called in. I'm okay failing. I'm okay saying like, whoa, okay, you're totally right. That's not the right language. It's not the right thing for me. That's not, and you know, being able to say, I'm sorry, apologize, be accountable, and move on. And not being like, I'm gonna, you know, make an apology cake for you. Great, we're cool, great. And I think that's a great way, is being like, you know, not making the people who need to be included and need to be belong do that labor, It's just really active listening. It's really like, okay, I'm not going to assume that this is how you want to be included in our community. I'm gonna hear from you and I'm gonna do as much as I possibly can. You know, it's like, yeah, like I'm not gonna be a white savior. And I think that's really important. And I think it's like building on what you all have already done and built an incredible foundation. And yeah, I think like I feel like Thomas, maybe you have done this, but it's like ask a city councilor, you did like ask them to rate. I think that is an extraordinary rate, because not everyone can come to a city council meeting at 6 p.m. So like, and I think that is another great way to do it, like during budget season, right? Like I'll come and I'll just give you the opportunity for people to be heard. It's a great way to do a vision deal.
Thank you.
And one of the, it's been bouncing in the back of my mind since I moved to Winooski, but you know, I think it's great that we were the first city to have non-resident voted. The first, Montpelier first or us.
We were at the same time.
Yeah.
But having a background in local government, I think one of the disconnects, one of the doors that the city council and every city council needs to try to open is how do we educate? Because even lifelong Vermonters don't understand the Byzantine wanderings of local government, right? Oh, I need a permit to put a porch on? Who are we to see? How do we educate first Americans, let's say, who have the right to vote in Winooski elections? Well, we have actually three elections this year. How does that even like comprehend the idea of our messy, ugly, sometimes wrong democracy? Like, and I think I've always wondered, and I thought about maybe setting up a nonprofit, how to sort of show first Americans and first time voters how Vermont politics works, because it's, do you even know? Like maybe.
Okay, honestly, Matt, I think that would be useful for many Vermonters.
I agree. Like, what's the difference between planning and zoning? Ask 10 Vermonters. And we expect.
Put that on a brave little state question.
It's a good, yeah, it's a good idea. Any other questions? So Aurora and I did the first round of interviews with a fun question. Aurora asked folks what their favorite thing in Winooski is. I'd like to borrow on that a little bit and ask you, where do you think, or where would you like to see Winooski going, and where would it be in the next 10 years? And you can take a little time to sit on that. So 10 years is a long time.
The hard part is I know where I don't want it to go, right?
Yeah.
That's an important part of the discussion, but I don't think that's what you're asking.
I feel like I'm not gonna try to overcomplicate this question with a ton of information on the other
Yeah.
end, but my main dream for that is keeping the community feel and like the drive and the passion that people have here, and the openness and willingness to learn and listen to other people. Like it's just everywhere, it floats through the air. So that's something that needs to stick with the next 10 years. And then in addition, you know, having better, more accessible housing, especially for families. I see them walk by my little office every day and I'm like, they're so cute and sweet. And they just like probably are stuck in a tiny overpriced apartment. And yeah, so housing primarily, making sure that the food system gets a little bit better. And that's obviously a huge one that's countrywide, worldwide. That is going to take a lot of time to figure out, but making sure that there's better like systems in place and maybe better programs. But I feel like housing alone, that improving will improve the entire city. So that's the primary goal.
Thank you.
I guess I'd say I would just like to see the identity of community that Winooski has become strengthened, and that involves a lot of rolling up our sleeves and working on our schools, our housing, our infrastructure. I mean, I think we're in a pretty good place. Winooski historically hasn't been in such a admirable place that it is now. I think people are like, I really like Winooski, it's got a lot going on. And I can tell you, growing up in St. Albans in the 70s, that was not what the the image was.
Mhm.
And so that's a pat on your back of all those who came before you and the city managers and the city planners who made this what it is. So I think it's a got a real good foundation of community, and that everything we can do to sort of strengthen that has to be done. It's not easy, but a lot of the heavy lifting is already taking place.
It's what my husband, that I think you all know, grew up in Winooski, and like his grandparents grew up here. Similar to Christine, actually, her husband also was like a Winooski resident forever, but we were the ones who decided to get involved. But he remembers going to, I think it was before Pizza Put, there was an iteration before that, and the kid, one time they were there and some kids were like, the river rats are here, and all the kids ran out of the Pizza Put because they didn't want to be around the Winooski kids because they might catch river rat. And my husband was like, well, we had the whole place to ourselves, so like, our parents were kind of really upset about it, but we were like, great. But yeah, Winooski's grown a lot, and it continues to do so.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I think keeping Winooski's community and intact and expanding under this wonderful, I'll go a little bit further to say, I'd like to see us have a more robust public transportation system, have less less reliance on cars. And I'd love to see a grocery store. I'd love to see our community really rising to meet some of the needs of our people so that we don't have to go across the bridge or up the road to get what we need. I'd like to see us reducing our fossil fuel footprint. I'd like to see, just the work is never done. I think the vision in 10 years I have is beautiful, but I'd like to see in 10 years, we're still asking this question of like, what can we do better? What can we do better?
Thank you.
A grocery store is also one of my first things, particularly a grocery store that you can walk to, and a grocery store that serves everyone. Like we love Missouri, we love Florida, Beth and Logan, but particularly that can serve everyone.
Yeah.
And I think particularly walkable, like I grew up in Underhill, I think maybe there's like a sidewalk there, but you couldn't walk places, and it's the thing, like I walked here, my wife and I walked to New York for dinner last night, like I just love it. I just think it's the greatest thing ever. And I echo you on public transit, and particularly the ability to both like public transit within Winooski and then to like leave and come back. But I think for me, it's the thing, it would be like I don't know how to say this without, to make Winooski like a destination. And for me, like so many people I grew up with, like we went to New York, etc. At the Underhill area, and my thought is this: like, what are you doing? Like, you just can't go places, whatever. I'm not saying that the Underhill are great. My thought is like you're missing out. Like you're missing out on so much in Winooski, and anyway, and so I think that's what I mean by destination, and like I have many community friends who live here, and I love just like bumping into them randomly on the street. It's my favorite thing. And so I think particularly like for families, for folks who are looking to like build, because then I love the idea of, I like sort of haphazardly co-parent two teens, and like they went to MMU, and it was great for me to talk to them about their experience having the same teachers that I had. And I would love that at Winooski High. And I think it's happening, right? But I think, there's just like these little things that you can do, right? Like get a sidewalk that, I mean, that's always under construction, right? But like a sidewalk that like leads all the way up, and then like the entire town of Winooski, right? Like we're walking to Chicks, we're going to Dan at Winooski Wheels to get a bike, we're riding our bike to the grocery store, like, right? It is just one, I think I said some interview, but like, it's just like Richard's scary busy town. And then selfishly, I don't live anymore. That's what I do the next few years. Yeah.
Awesome. Very much appreciate that. There is technical public comment, so if there is anyone who is online who would like to make a comment to these folks, please raise your hand. I don't see the hands raised. So what we're gonna do now is we will enter into executive session, so that we can have a discussion. My belief is we likely won't vote, given that we don't have Charlie here. So you're welcome to stay until we come out of, executive session. That was gonna be my recommendation to you if we're a full council, but as we're not, I don't think we'll take a vote. I don't want you to hang around for me essentially to say the meeting is over and not let one of you know who is moving forward, but you're welcome to. And again, I really just wanna thank you all. I mean, after each day of interviews, Aurora and I just sat there and said, like, truly, and I feel like people always say this, but we really mean it when we said, this is an amazing group of people. I can't tell you how many folks have approached me and asked, oh, how are the interviews going, if any counselor, and I just said, I've been shocked by how many people were interested, the caliber of the people who were interested. You left us with a really difficult decision to get to the four of you. Now it's an even more difficult decision to go from 4 to 1. But thank you so much for your interest in the city. It really, you've all echoed this, like, this love and passion that you have for Winooski, and we all have that, and it's just really, I'm a Pisces, so it's been really touching for me to just hear you all talk about the city and to see people who want to help out, so thank you.
And I hope you all stay engaged, however this comes out. We have a lot of different opportunities, both formal and informal, so just very much hoping that this, however it works out, can be the start of some additional partnership and work, because y'all have the spirit and the knowledge of very much what we need in the city, so.
There are open commission seats too.
Yes, however this goes, I will be in contact with all of you, afterwards, with some thoughts that, I have, so.
Something that hasn't been said yet is regardless of this outcome, there's an election in March with 3 seats that
Yes.
will be open, so.
We all run.
Wow.
Yeah, well, we
Two
should,
council
two
seats
councilors.
and the mayor's seat are up for election
Okay.
in March.
Also, let us know how we can support you, should you all choose to run. Sorry, somebody's worked on numerous campaigns.
Sorry, all 3 year terms are up?
No, Bryn is safe. I should say it. Aurora and I,
Unless they're.
neither of us have announced what we're planning on doing yet,
But your terms
but
expire.
our terms expire.
Yeah, two-year terms typically, so it was already, your seats were already up for reelection this coming March. I was reelected this past March, so, yeah.
My final plug too is that the school board will be looking for budget buddies, so if any of y'all wanna hang out with the school board and support that work, that's also coming up.
How about the budget buddies?
budget
Yeah.
So,
All right.
Lots of opportunities.
yeah.
Well,
Thanks for
thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. We appreciate you hanging out with us this evening.
No, I just didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah, that's great, thank you.
I just like filled out the.
Thank you. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to enter executive session pursuant to VSA 3133. The appointment or employment of evaluation of a public officer or employee for the purpose of discussing candidates for the council vacancy.
So moved.
Second.
Um,
And then do we need to?
and then I'd also like to ask for a motion to invite the city manager into that executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. We will now enter executive session. The only thing that we'll be discussing in executive session is the interviews that we just conducted. We won't discuss anything else, and we will come out of executive session to make a vote if that is what council deems necessary.